And Minneh is from Kenya, and she lives in Lari, in Kamau district. When she finished her education, she became a Sunday school teacher amongst her peers. And in high school, she was a good debater, a good public speaker, and she was a very good actor. She took part in drama. When she finished her schooling, she taught as an untrained high school teacher in her hometown, Upland, that's back in Kenya. But after finding out that she was HIV positive, it became her mission to educate people. I'm sure so many of us are interested in HIV education, and we're all in different organizations that have to do something with AIDS. To date, she has over 600 presentations. Maybe this is 601, presentation 601. Never know, or maybe it's 700 and something. To graduate students, to children, to teens. Basically, she's reached so far and so wide. It's a very serious problem for her, but she has managed to cope it in such a positive way, and I'm so happy whenever I talk to her, I'm like, wow, she's a real survivor. And I think that's something we should all learn from her today. There's a message she should give us. Let's just listen to it keenly and go wherever we're going and put it into some of our actions that we're doing. Minneh's hope is that she wants to reduce the number of new infections through education. Education is the key to telling people about the spread of AIDS and how to curb it. And once they see a lived example, they're able to have a one-on-one, and they're able to solve their problems quite faster or easier. She's also formed a company known as Sanfan, See and Need, Feel and Need. And it's an educational group to accomplish this goal. So, yeah, Minneh, welcome.
Thank you. People bury people every day. Anywhere in the world there's a burial at one time, but at the same time is a child being born every day. So there's a reason to smile, and there's a reason to not be so serious, because after all we have to be strong to be able to fight this HIV and AIDS. The reason I'm interested, as you've been told, is because I myself have the virus, and I went through so much pain and so much trauma that I thought I can at least be able to block for somebody else so that it's not so much, reduce the speed or something for the people. And that's why I love to teach, just so that the message can be spread, and so that this devastation that has come to the world can at least be reduced. It's a very serious issue, as Ruth was saying, but I like to take it with a sort of a light touch, because would cry the whole evening instead of running. Does anyone know what HIV stands for? Yes?
Human immunodeficiency virus.
Very good, and you remember that from?
From standard 8.
Wow. That's very, 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 very good. Thank you. There's things we know and we don't revisit, so we forget about them. Deficiency virus. We're all human beings, and because we're all human beings, then it happens that we're likely to be one of the people that are at risk for this virus. It attacks human beings, and once it has attacked the human body, it goes right to the fighter cells. What my brother calls the immuno is fighter cells. We all have fighter cells that help us to fight illnesses all the time, constantly. Our body is very, very strong, and we should feed it. Like I see you're feeding your body, it's very good. We should give it water, that's awesome. Because it's very strong, it fights on its own. Even when the HIV gets into the body still fights. And that's what I would like people to know, that the body has not just started to die. The body is actually fighting this virus and fighting really, really hard. The virus eats the fighter cells, causing them to become deficient. And what we are fighting is a tiny germ that can hardly be seen with the human eye. It pisses me off. Because if there was something we could do, like collaborate with a rungu, which is a big film.
word.
Yeah, we would do that every day, and we would win. But it's so tiny, we can't even see it with the human eye. And every day, 7,000 to 8,000 people die. Every day, every day, every day. And I'm aware of that. And I am aware that I could be dead, but I'm not dead. And I'll tell you the story, how come I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. Does anyone know what AIDS stands for?
Autoimmune deficiency syndrome.
I always like that when people say auto. Very good try, but it's acquired. Acquired, yes. It's something you obtain from somewhere. So if you're just by yourself, sitting there on a bar stool, sleeping on your bed, eating, doing what the things you do on your own, there is no way you're going to get this virus. It's the interaction with other people that causes that, and we have to interact. So it's a matter of knowing how and with who and what kind of questions you ask. I like to tell people that are dating, it's no longer a question of, I like your nice blue eyes and I like your broad shoulders. It's where have you been? I want to know how dirty you've been. I want to know exactly where you've been, because I'm trying to take care of my health over here, and if I don't know where you're coming from, you could contaminate me with something. So we're fighting each for their own selves, not putting aside the people with HIV/AIDS, but really appreciating that this illness is there and you want to be a healthy person. So at that time you stand alone and decide what you would like to do, which is to fight. Syndrome is a set of diseases. There's 25 to 29 illnesses. Blows my mind away. A person that has had HIV and then has been told they have AIDS, it's because they have had one of those illnesses or two of them or even more than that. So HIV plus one opportunistic illness, they are called opportunistic illnesses. I cannot spell that, but I will just say OP. It takes just HIV and one illness. Because I've had tuberculosis in the past and I've also had pneumonia, I'm then a person living with AIDS. And the status doesn't change. As long as you had HIV and then you got one of those two illnesses, you will always be a person living with AIDS. Something I would like to redefine myself. You know, I'd like to say that I used to have AIDS and now I'm just HIV positive. I would like to be able to tell that story, but the medical reports do not allow that at this time. But I do feel really strong, much stronger than when I didn't even have the virus. Because with the virus, I learned to live a much healthier life, realizing that my life could be taken away. So it takes some time to face death in the eye and go, I have to make a difference, and I'm going to change what I am, my ways, or my ways of eating and everything else. Everything changed. So I'm healthier every day than the last day, which is great. Are there any questions regarding the definition? No questions? Is that because we understood? I'll ask a question myself. Could somebody tell me the difference between HIV and AIDS? Just anyone who remembers what we talked about. Yes.
AIDS is the escalation of from the HIV virus. Once you've got one of the 25 or 29 illnesses, you've sort of
stopped being HIV positive.
Yeah,
yes.
So now you're HIV positive and you have AIDS.
And you have AIDS.
Right.
So you stop being HIV positive as far as the medical records are concerned, and now you become a person living with AIDS. So it is the advanced stage. That's what you're trying to say.
Right.
The advanced stage of the HIV. It was also known as the final stage, but again, it's something that I would like to say, and I'm still here. So it cannot be that once a person gets AIDS, that's their last days. I totally disagree with that, because I've seen with my own experience that that's not the case.
I have a question for you.
Yes, Brenda.
So what do you think? I think what you're saying is really important in terms of redefining. It speaks to stigma, and it speaks, maybe we'll come to that like later as you go along, but it speaks to a lot of things in terms of you're healthy and you say you're even living, taking your lifestyle in a different way that you probably wouldn't have had you not been faced with that situation.
Yes.
I know even from what I've read within like medical, not so much medical journals, but the whole debate around HIV and AIDS and the trying to separate the two, that AIDS doesn't necessarily come from the virus, which some people are trying to argue. Do you think that it would be helpful? I mean, like, would it help in terms of educating people to not make that connection between AIDS being the next stage, I guess the advanced stage after HIV, in terms of if somebody had AIDS and then lived healthily, could they then not take that status seriously because they could still pass on the virus to somebody else? So if there's a change in that, do you think that it would affect how responsible people are? Because it's like, well, I'm healthy now, so I don't really need to worry about whether I'm going to infect my partner or not, So dealing with that, but also dealing with the fact that there's a lot of stigma around AIDS, and people who have AIDS or who have had the full-blown AIDS at some point are not necessarily, they don't need to be stigmatized in that way because they could be healthy.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I would like to change definitely. I understand what you're saying is the fact that people are living longer and healthier, but everybody is saying, oh, you're sick, you got the AIDS and you're almost dying, this is the last stage and all that. I think it can totally be turned around through education, as you were saying. I don't know if that makes any sense.
But yeah. I think what Brenda is saying also, if I hear her well, is that if as you say, now I'm HIV and I know that I have AIDS, but I'm living healthier, and if we impart that message to the people, is it not going to encourage them to live an healthier life again, saying because they know that they think that they are healthy, are they not going to live an healthier life which is going to affect other people?
That's right.
I guess that's
you
what
you heard,
she
yeah. that was the question. Yeah.
But I also have an opinion to that before you can give your answer. I think I like the way you perceive the new definition of being an HIV and AIDS infected person. I think I like that because I think that we also have to impart, to educate people about, so that they can live with hope. Because if we do not live with hope, then again it is useless. We are not going to respect our bodies and respect the people around us. And without that kind of respect, it's really no use, even if we are given medicine or whatever, all of these things. So I am not answering Brenda's, but I think the message of what you are saying is also good in that it can give us hope, those who live with HIV or AIDS are AIDS affected,
yes.
Which is good.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think that even today, people, just because there's medication for HIV/AIDS, people are living careless lives. So I would not be surprised if people will live careless lives thinking, oh, we'll get the medication or we can get better. It does take a lot of work to get better. It's not everybody who can just make it to get better. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of discipline. So one has to be willing to have those, and if they're not willing to have those, then they're not ready to get well. And so carelessness will always be there. And it's good for us who are learning here to know that we can always take care of ourselves and we can be careful, regardless of what the other people are doing. Because it goes back to you as a person, as an individual. I, as Minneh Kamau, has to take care of myself. And no matter whether people are dancing around saying AIDS is no longer that serious, I know I have to take care of myself. So that's the point which I was trying to put across. But very well spoken, both the ladies. Thank you. We're going to do a timeline, very brief, of how the HIV travels as the years go by. This timeline is for a person who is HIV positive in a developed country, has medication, has good food, has good water, has a place to sleep, and all the necessary things that a person needs in life. Again, it is a line that I teach, but completely would like to beat it. I would like to beat what it says. I would like to do better than the timeline. It starts at a point of infection. But before the point of infection, there's 3 things that I have come to realize are the leading factor in contracting HIV/AIDS. One of them is ignorance. The not knowing aspect of life. Oh, I don't know about that. Do you know about this? No, I don't know about that. And that's why I'm so proud of you for knowing the definition of HIV/AIDS since grade 8. That's knowing something. It's being knowledgeable about the issues that are going ahead. The other one is lack of self-worth. How you feel about yourself. Ryan, doing the recording today, is my fiancé. We're going to get married soon. And this morning he said, I said I would like to go for a walk because I went down to the Chancellor Road and there's a nice walkway there. And I truly thought I would be lost. So I was saying to him, no, I don't want to go. I don't want us to part company because I think I'll be lost. And he says, well, that's the gate residence, that's the sub. Let's meet here at noon. And I wandered off and I thought, so easily you can be made to be small. Very, very easily, just out of nowhere. You're doing fine, and then all of a sudden just something grabs you, and you feel so small. And we have to develop that feeling of, I'm not small anymore. Like Nelson Mandela said, you know, our playing small does not serve the world at all. So we have to come out and feel good about ourselves. The way we walk, I always try to walk straight with my head up and my chin high up, because that's the way I want to that's the way I'm feeling that the life is for me. And when I face down, then I try to pull myself up because I know that there's something that I have to do. And that self-worth is what helps you fight this virus. Because you're taking care of yourself, you want your body to have nice, healthy cells. You want to be able to have a nice, healthy family if you are thinking of getting married. And so you have to have this self-worth whereby you stand for yourself. And as I tell my story, you're going to see a lot more about how lack of self-worth can lead to contracting HIV and AIDS. The other one is substance abuse. They call kupewa kitu, to be given something. And people are given one too many. And the brain doesn't work the same if you are intoxicated. Yes, that word. The brain doesn't work very well, so the reasoning there's not very good reasoning. What I usually say to people is to set your limits so that you know exactly how much of the substance you're taking affects you. If it affects you so much, and if you find yourself speaking louder and louder and louder, maybe it's time to know that something is you're totally intoxicated, and it's time to probably change to water. So most of it is really common sense, just thinking, I got to this party somehow, but how am I getting home? If my driver is drunk, do I have $5 to get me back home? Always planning ahead, because the actions of today, 2005 now we are, I'm so grateful to the Creator to be able to be here in this year. The actions of today are going to determine what's going to happen tomorrow. How we behave, how we carry ourselves, what we're doing now, all that is going to be part of what we're going to be in the future. So, point of infection in 2005, wake up the next day, tomorrow. And I usually say to people, please don't go for a HIV test as soon as you hear this presentation. Give yourself at least 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, you will find yourself going into yourself, figuring out who you are, where you're coming from, and where you're going. And exactly after 2 weeks, it will either be important for you to go for a HIV test or it won't be. But going right now is disrupting your life in a very, very big way, because it's a very stressful time, that time of testing and waiting for results. Very, very stressful. And you still have to be a student. You got to put a front in your friends. You know, you have to think about these things. So nothing has changed since we started this presentation. Nothing. The way you are is still the way you are. And so I don't want fear. I want people who are determined to take the knowledge and use it to help themselves, and give yourself at least 2 weeks if you want to go for a HIV test. Let's say you go for a HIV test. The doctor will say, come back in 3 months from the point of infection. If you know the time you were infected, most people don't know. That's why most people don't go for tests, because most people don't know. There's nothing big happens when you get infected. It's the same person that you are, just the body has a virus in it. And you either feel a little bit tired, or you have a little bit of a flu, or a little bit of a rash. Things that can usually be ignored in normal life. So things you can say, oh, maybe it's the sun that gives me the rash, while it could actually be the HIV that gives you the rash. So it takes 3 months for the doctor to detect the virus. What he's looking for is the antibodies produced by your strong body, which is fighting this virus. So they catch the antibodies of 98% of the people on the first test. Then they say to everybody else, come back in another 3 months, positive or negative, and we'll do another test. And he catches 2% of the people, who are called slow progressors. They were infected in January. They went for a test in March, and they were praising God all over the place that they don't have the virus. Then they went again in June, and their heads dropped because now they had the virus. They had the virus even then, but they are called slow progressors. Their virus doesn't fight the body as fast as other people's, and so it moves very, very slowly. The danger is they can still be infecting other people. And that's why I cannot insist on how much you must tell your partner, potential partner, that you want to know where they've been. Of course, you will be telling them where you've been too, so that you can get the information from them. That's the trick. You gotta talk about yourself, and then somebody will talk to you about themselves. But we can't afford to be losing young people because of this misunderstanding that they thought they had the virus, and they probably never went for the second test. And that's why the numbers are growing all the time. We're finding the numbers of HIV positive people is not going down, it's going higher and higher and higher, because of little things, because of things that seem little, but they are really, really big. So a recommendation is 2 tests. You want this person to have gone for at least 2 tests from the time, by the time you want to go out with them. It must be 6 months, but they must also keep those 2 tests very clean in between. I don't know if I'm making that sense, but in between, they must not be using needles or going out with other people. So it's a sort of a discipline that this illness has brought. The next 7 to 10 years, the person is in good health. The behavior of 2005 brings us to 2010 and 15. So again, the numbers are growing because people can be healthy for 7 to 10 years without showing that they have the virus. And it's very important to remember that when you're dealing with somebody else and you want to be intimate with them. Remember that that's possible. Remember that AIDS can look like this. It doesn't have to be hollow cheeks and no hair. It can look like I look like. And so if you're not talking to people about things, you might not be taking care of yourself the best way possible. And you should be able to, because you have a voice and you have knowledge. The next 5 to 7 years, the person starts to get untidy just because the body is shutting down. They get depressed and fatigued. Many doctors will listen to somebody say, I am depressed and I am very tired, and they would say something like, you have worked very hard, because now we are in like 2022. You have worked so hard, you graduated from UBC at this time, and you've been working all this time. It's a very stressful job. We'll give you part-time and we'll let you rest for most of the time and not test. You can't go testing every depressed person, really, but I just want to show you that where the holes are, where people really miss a test when they should actually have got a test. When I speak about untidy, because I like to speak about health and wellness in general, I often like to ask who made their beds. Who made your bed today? Oh, very good. That's very, very good. It's those little things. Those are the ones that bring a smile to the face. When you go to the bed, if it's made, it's not shuffled, you have a really good night's sleep and you feel nice instead of fighting with the blankets all the time, which is what I used to do. I was a slob before HIV came into my life, and after HIV, I continued to be a slob, and then I realized this is a health issue. If I don't remove the clutter from my life, then I'll be crowded and I won't be able to function. So those are the things that matter, and you know for yourself what it is in your room that you need to get rid of. You know, you see it every day, but you haven't really taken the step. So it's removing that clutter away. The feng shui, they call feng shui the Chinese people. I believe in things like those. Just removing the clutter. We were so cluttered that we had to call for help. And when help came and the clutterness left, we felt much better and much healthier. And it's so much easier to talk about it because I'm not cluttered where I'm coming from. So I can say for sure that it really helps. And that's what HIV positive people need. And I think the countries that have hospice for them, nice places, people to talk to and all that, when people are dying, it's very, very essential, as opposed to being in a little tiny room or being on the streets where there's no shower and you have the virus and you cannot take care of yourself. The last 5 to 7 years at the AIDS stage, 2029. We'll get there, you know. Like we used to never think we'll get to 2000, and we got there, and we'll get to 2029. And I don't know what kind of people will be then. The question is what kind of person will be then, but then you look at the things you're doing today, and those things will determine exactly what you're going to be then. So the timeline says 15 to 24 years. A person can live with this virus and die. I have had it for the period of time that I know. It has been 12 years, going to 12 years now. And if I give myself another 12 years, that's a lot of time. I could do a degree if I wanted to. I could do 2. So it's quite amazing how we can have a timeline, but that timeline is not what rules our life. That's just a timeline to show you that people can live from 15 to 24 years, but we're seeing people living for much, much, much longer. And as I was saying, Brenda, it does take a lot of work and sometimes a lot of money to be able to be well. And so it depends on who is getting these resources. Magic Johnson, he does very well because he's got the money and he's in a country which is providing medication. I do well because I listen to things like Chinese acupuncture, taking my vitamins, making sure I eat, making sure I don't get depressed so that my fighter cells can stay up. Doing those things also do help. So medication and doing those things actually help me to be much, much better. Used to be death at the end of that. Death, and I think about death, I think about the trees all the time. Trees are so beautiful and they're so strong and they tell me a story every time. And one of the stories is of the little tiny bird coming out after the tree had stood there looking dead and so horribly naked for a long time. And then it blossoms and it's all so beautiful. beautiful, and you would not imagine that somebody would have thought that tree was dead. And then it produces leaves. They're all green and beautiful and shiny, and then they start to change color from red, brown, the orange, red again. And you look at the tree and you wonder, did it cry? What happened to the tree when it was going through this transition? And what's going to happen to the leaves? Well, they're going to fall to the ground. Are they scared? I have no idea. And they fall to the ground and they become the very food for that tree to be able to produce more leaves for next year, for the cycle to go on and to go on. So when I thought about death, I thought, I'm not afraid. If the trees can do it, if the leaves can do it, I can do it. In my rotten stage, I can be the person that's giving food so that we have a better foundation for our nation. That's my hope, that we really do have a better nation, from building from our children, teaching them self-worth, teaching them how to have limits, not telling them don't do this, don't do that, telling them if you do this, make sure you also do this. That's what I would like to see going on. So I'll be telling my story now. Are there any questions? Maybe I should have asked if there's any questions before I talked about the story. Are there any questions? No questions, thank you. Does somebody have Kleenex? The moment has come when I have to use Kleenex. There'll be some here.
Here we go.
Thank you very much. I always say to myself, I wouldn't be needing Kleenex this time around. And it never works, it never really works.
I think we all need Kleenex.
We watched this and cried from like young. Oh my God, we cried. All of us are just like cried. Okay, who wants to talk now? Nobody wanted to talk. We were all
When was
cried
that?
out. This was on Friday. We watched this documentary about Southern Sudan.
Oh,
And they did, like, there's not a lot of speaking, and it's actually footage from 2 days in this village. But yeah, it was just, we were all so moved. So Ruth can remember.
Do you want some more?
I should remember on Friday.
Oh,
yeah.
We'll tell you.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Thank you very much. I was born in Kenya in 1968. And when I see that in front of children, I think I'm so old. But I'm realizing that it's all in the heart and in the blood, the way you feel about yourself is most important. And I grew up in a family where there was violence, all the time beating and calling names. And there was also rape that happened to me when I was quite a little girl. And also the verbal abuse I talked about. So there was verbal abuse, there was physical abuse, there was also rape. And what that does to a little girl, any little girl or little boy, is that they are squashed and they don't know how to express themselves anymore. So they keep things inside. And I kept things inside for such a long time that it really, the result of it is that I was going to die. I was going to die somehow. Things were so bad. And I continued to go to school and do the things that people do in school, which is read. We got beat in school too, so there was a bit of no place for solace, no place to call home, and it was very hard for me. But I managed to finish the Standard 7. I didn't pass in the first round, but the second round I passed by 1 point more than what I had before. But it got me to boarding school. And when I got to boarding school, I was amazed that I didn't have breast while every other child in the class had breast. We were about 14 or 15 years old. And I thought those names I was called that being told I'll never amount to anything, all that is true. So I carried myself with very low self-worth because, you know, I thought it had to do with something with me not being right, especially after the rape. And I was raped twice after, when I was young, when I was little, I was raped again when I was like 12 years old, which is still little. But you can imagine how little I was in the first time. I was at least 5, 6, 7, or 8 years old, I'm not quite sure. So I carried it within myself that I was improper and I would never amount to anything, and that's why I did not have breasts. But as you can see today, it worked out really nice. So, yeah, a lot of self-worth came out of that. But you can just imagine a 15-year-old girl going to school every day, away from parents and alone, thinking there's something wrong and I'll never amount to anything. So what I usually tell to people, as long as you're exercising, as long as you're doing something, maybe riding your bike or walking or any jogging, any kind of exercising, as long as you're doing that, just let your body be. And so the other day when I realized the clothes were too tight, I just went and got some secondhand, really bigger, better clothes. And I let the body be. I really have refused to be caught up in this race that I used to be in before. I just let myself be, and it seems to be that you develop into a beautiful person every time. I finished high school and went to advanced school. Advanced school, I was the head girl. So I was a girl with potential, and I was the head girl, but then the deputy head girl went out, reached out all the men what was wrong. And when she came back, she said that I had given her permission to go out. And so I was demoted. And my self-worth just went crashing. It went crashing all the way down. So I missed campus by 2 points. But those 2 points say very little about me. They really do. They have not much significance in my life. But I do remember even today that because I was demoted and I took it so personally and so seriously, I wasn't able to concentrate very well in school. So there's a lot of issues that could affect a person in school, and it's up to us to look inside to see what it is that's bothering us so that we can really be able to excel. You face where you feel that you're struggled, you face it and clear it. I hope you have counselors, people have counselors and people like that. Yeah, go see them, talk to them. That's why they're hired to do those kind of things. And then you can really concentrate on your work. I wish I knew that then, but it's sort of too late. All I can do is use my experiences to teach other people. And then I was a teacher, and then there was sexual harassment at this place, directed to me. And I thought I quit, I can't do it. So I must have been inside of me a strong person. I got a job in the city. Here I am in the city, beautiful, drop-dead gorgeous woman who has no idea that she's beautiful. And that is the danger. If you have no idea that you're a beautiful person, if you have no clue of how handsome you are, then who is going to do it for you? And the danger came when I started going out with men, and they would tell me how beautiful I was. And I've never been told that by anybody else before, and I believed them. And I would do anything for them. I would go out with them, we would drink, we would have sex, and then they would drop me like a hot potato, because that's not the kind of woman they want to go out with. They want somebody stronger. They don't want somebody who jumps in just like that, just because they were told they're beautiful. And I got caught up in this promiscuous cycle. If I had an addiction in my life, that was my addiction. That somebody drops me because they think I'm either too sensitive or I'm not mature enough or I cry too much or all this garbage I was carrying inside, they could see through it. They would dump me, and the next guy who asked me out, I would follow the same procedure. So when somebody sticks a needle repeatedly in their arms, I understand that. I sort of understand, because you're caught up. If somebody keeps lighting a cigarette and smoking it or drinking too much, I understand that because I was there, myself addicted to. Sorry, I was just thinking about time. I think we have time. Thanks for the Kleenex. So that was my addiction. I got pregnant. I had a boyfriend for 3 months, which was like a gazillion years for me to have a boyfriend for that long. And I got pregnant and give birth to a beautiful girl. I didn't even know I was capable of giving birth. Even as I was carrying the child, I couldn't believe. I was very afraid because of my parents. No sex before marriage and no child outside of wedlock. This is the teaching that I was brought up with. And I knew that my parents were going to have a tough time with this deal, but inside of me, I was excited. I was like, I'm a woman, and I have a baby inside of me, and I'm going to have to give birth. And I gave birth to this little girl. And then the problems at home were that the abuse came back again, the violence came back again, and the strength in me, the little strength there was, told me, you're gonna run. So I took my baby, and we ran. We ran and went to, the farthest we could go was the grandmother of the child on her dad's side, so the mom of the father. And we went and stayed there for about a month. Then my friend Catherine, God rest her soul in peace, she came to see me and said, you have to move. Because you're in the house where you're at the father's house, but not in his home, you're in the mother's house. So this man is not interested in you. If he was interested, he would take you to his own home. And so I thought about it, and I thought she's right. So she took me to Wangige, a place in Kenya, and she took care of us for about a year. Then fate would have it that Kathy would die in a road accident. Smash. Gone. I depended on her so strongly that I had nowhere else to go. And I found myself as a prostitute in the streets of Nairobi. And it was tough. Sometimes I think, if I was born in Canada, that child would have been taken to foster home. I would have been on the streets or somewhere. Something would have happened. But there was nothing that happened. Nothing happened. There was a kid, there was me, there was fear, there was loneliness, and there was, what can I do other than just stand on the street and feed this child? Child's gotta eat. I gotta eat, I gotta go to college, I have to have some bus fare. And the things that were going on were just unbelievable. And because these people from here in Kenya, I can say it straight, going out with the tan boys, trying to make bus fare back to the house. That's going on with the conductors of the vehicles that carry people, so that I could be able to go home and feed my kid. And I understand the prostitutes and why they're there on the streets, and I totally understand. And I see peace, and use a condom if you can. So the loneliness that can strike a person is so amazing sometimes. And the things a person can do because of that is also very shocking. But a person has to do what a person has to do. Because if you don't do what you have to do, nobody else is going to do it for you. And I was sick with pneumonia. I started teaching college. I was a sharp kid because I finished college and they gave me a job at the same college to teach typewriting and shorthand theory. So I was a good person. There was nothing wrong with me. But then I got pneumonia, lost the job, and I remember resting in a restaurant, and this Muslim guy, these are the Muslims I know, The Muslims I know, they're kind and they're helpful. I don't know about all the other ones, but this one, he asked me what's wrong, and I said I had a chest pain, and he said I'll take you to my chest specialist and you'll get treated, I'll pay for it. And off I went with this guy, and he paid, and the doctor says, see me in 2 weeks, here's some antibiotics. And I took the antibiotics for 2 weeks, but never went to see Dr. Murady again because I was feeling fine and well. And I felt that I did need to go and see him. And then in 1993, I got a job at the University of Nairobi as a secretary because of the college I had done. And I was a secretary there for 3 years. But before I could get the job, I had to go see a doctor, and one of them was Dr. Murady. So I thought, well, I better go see the one I know. And I go to see Dr. Murady, and he's like, where have you been? It's been since 91, now we are in 93. Where have you been? And I said, I've been around, doctor. Why are you so furious? What's wrong? He says, well, your pneumonia is HIV related. That was in 93. And I said, I was so ignorant. That's why I teach, because I feel that we must learn. I say to the doctor, isn't it airborne? If I have it, everybody must have it, including yourself. And he says, no, for you, I think it's unprotected sex. And my heart sunk, because I had had so much unprotected sex. It's pathetic. I thought, I'm dying. I'm dying, and I'm not dying alone. I saw the men I was going out with, their wives, then they have another girlfriend like myself, and then she has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend and the girlfriend don't agree, so they go different ways to other people. I saw the whole picture in one sitting, and I walked out of the doctor's office, literally into the streets on Tomboya, talking to the prostitutes, saying, you must use condoms, you must use condoms. I knew I was going to die, and I thought I better die after I've done at least something small. And I got chosen to come to a conference here in Vancouver to teach about what I was teaching the women. And I stayed at the Gage residence. I'm very proud of the UBC. I remember buying soup from a dispenser. I don't think they have those anymore. And trying to understand the silence. UBC is very quiet, and I was thinking, my head is still gonging and bonging, and all the things are happening in my head, and this place is so quiet. It took me years, and it took also suffering mental health to finally be able to accept that this is safe. I don't have to carry my handbag crunched so hard. I don't have to look over my shoulders all the time. I don't have to prostitute. I'm safe. But it took 4 visits to the mental hospital. I got chosen to come to this conference, and I was given a visa for 2 months. And I was willing to die here and never be seen again by my family. And I didn't die. What happened was this lady, she took me in for 2 months, and then I started doing housekeeping. Even today, I don't believe I was doing housekeeping because it's such a tough job. But I was doing housekeeping without medication for HIV, and working and paying my rent, sending some money home for Jesse, and just working hard. And then I realized that's behavior change. You change from one thing and you graduate to something else. Not that this is lower than this, but at least I made an effort to move from that crowd. And it was quite amazing. And one day, Immigration Canada knocked my door. Immigration Canada and RCMP. And I'm like, okay, RCMP, Royal Mountain Police, yes. What is it? And they say, well, we understand you're cleaning houses without a permit. Is that true? And I thought, my God, I can't lie to these people. I knew in my heart I wasn't supposed to be playing any jokes or games or anything that had to be honest with these people. And I said, yes, I clean houses without a permit. We understand you're HIV positive, is that correct? And I'm thinking, who told them? You can't talk to one single person without the word spreading around. Somebody even trusted trusted people can feel that this situation is too big and they need to phone the authorities. And I think that's what happened, which is a shame. So, but it's okay that I got caught because it saved a lot of trouble for myself. And they said, you also don't have a passport, is that correct? Because I'd gone dancing and drank too much tequila, I lost my passport. And that's always the place I go back when I'm drinking and if I exceed my limit, I must stop because I lost my passport, which could have cost me a lot of deportation problems. If only I had been drinking on towards my limit, I would still have had my passport because it's a very important document and I had used it as ID. So they said, well, you have 3 things that are wrong and we're taking you to the station. So I thought, well, I spoke the truth. I had the truth would set you free. And I said I'd spoken the truth, but things were not getting any better. I was in the cop's car, I was in handcuffs, I was in the cells and little bunker bed. Not so bad, really. If you ever go in, it's not so bad. At least you can sleep well. And the next day, the immigration officer came and said, you have to leave in 30 days. I thought, well, 30 days, that's great. I can somehow earn some money somewhere. I don't know, but I'll never prostitute again, but I'll figure out something. I was just relieved that at that time I was safe. And 30 days passed by just like that, and I moved my belongings. The best I could do was move my belongings from one household to another. And the RCMP and Immigration Canada on my door again, knock, knock, knock. You never left? No. Well, by this time I knew the guys, so I was like, well, I guess we're going. And they said, yes, we are, and I took whatever I can. Just my certificates that I had for school. My dad paid lots of money for that schooling, so I had to take those. And so when I got to Kenya, I would at least get a job or something. So it's not so shameful that I've been deported. And I was taken back to the police cells and then taken to Vancouver. And when I was taken to Vancouver, excuse me, the lady that was supposed to be my escort to Kenya, after 4 days of being alone, asked me what I had done, and I said to her, I have done nothing other than I was born. I had I was born, I had mistakes were made that caused me to turn out to be a very promiscuous woman who was also a prostitute, and got flown to Canada to come and talk about HIV and AIDS after learning that I had it. And now I want medication for HIV, but I don't know where to start. The reason I was so smart that morning is because I had 4 days of silence, contemplating, thinking, wondering. My daughter had just died 8 months before this immigration saga. And I was in those cells thinking, why did I give birth? Why did I have to prostitute? Why did she have to die? What do I have to do now? And I was like a mad woman, but nobody would know that I was like a mad woman because I knew so well to keep things inside. I knew so well, but inside was a turmoil. And I told this lady this story. She called my lawyer. If there's anything you hear people saying, oh, I'm saved, well, I'll tell you that I am saved. Because the lady phoned my lawyer and I was returned to Victoria. And I had one thing in my mind, I'm going to teach, I'm going to teach, I'm going to teach, I'm going to teach. I don't know who, I don't know where, I don't know how I will start it, but I'm going to teach. That very story that has saved my life, I am going to tell it to other people so that they too may get a chance of being saved. Because I think that we all need that. We all need that feeling of, I'm not a bad person, I am an all right person. Everybody needs to know that. And you don't have to suffer the things I suffered, you just have to believe what I have told you just now, that that's who you are. And so I started teaching as a volunteer. It took me 6 years in this place, just volunteering, teaching people. I was so happy. Then Ryan and I decided, let's form San Fan Educational Group so that we have our own thing. We can go teach our own thing. We can talk the way we want to talk. We can cry if we want to, and nobody is really giving us any way of talking, because this story cannot be told in another way than just be real. And so we formed this company in 2003. We have come to UBC twice. This is thrice. Yeah, this is our third time. We go around to conferences, schools. Monica is here today to watch the presentation so that she can do marketing for us. So there's a lot of help coming around to Sanfan Educational Group, and we are very happy to have that. And the last thing that I would like to say about the story, we still have to do a little bit of 101, but Jessie, when she was small, she comes up to me, she's 3 years old, and mommy, let's play. And I'm like, no, go. You know how mothers are. I'm just like, go play somewhere else, leave me alone, I'm sick. No, I didn't say I'm sick, I said I don't want to play, just go. Jessie didn't go anywhere. She stood there, 3 years old, and she says, Mommy, bona unanishautia? Mommy, why are you shouting at me? She mixed Kiswahili and English to ask me that question, and it struck me. I wanted to hit her so hard. That's what my mother would have done to me. I wanted to hit her so hard, but she broke the abuse right there. I was intending to hit her. Something came upon me and said, you must explain to her. And she was the first person I ever told I was sick. At 3 years old, and she listened, and she go, no problem, Mom. And the kids are playing outside, and she's saying, keep quiet, keep it low, my mom is sick. She was like, oh my Lord, all I needed to do was to tell this girl. And then she would be able to understand.
You have to just go. I just have to pass the evaluation forms, and
Okay.
so that you can keep them.
Okay. So that's where my self-worth came from. The 4 days I was in detention and I was thinking about my life, I was thinking about her too and how she spoke up for herself. And I never let somebody get into my way. A girl was getting sick, and I was watching her with another guy, and after she got through the getting sick, she says, go get something, Kleenex or something, instead of standing there. And I say to her, we can stand here if we want to. We don't have to go and get you Kleenex. We don't have to go, she doesn't have to use a bad tone with me, because I've already been used a bad tone already. So I don't allow it to happen. And you shouldn't either. You should be able to quietly, very quietly, the trick is very quietly, very clearly, and use phrases. Use something nice to say it. Like, bona unanishautia, instead of, why are you yelling? Bona unanishautia, just music to my ears, those words. And I think that we should be able to do that too. It's not good to call me fat, because that's not right. It's not good to, I don't like the way you are talking to me right now. I don't like that you banged the door after you left the room. I don't like this, I don't like that. Stating your facts quietly and clearly. And even if you're shaking and you're trembling and you cry sometimes, that's okay too. It's okay to be able to do that. And so I learned a lot from that little girl. She was here for only 6 years and 10 months, but she really taught me something. And if there's something I have appreciated in being in the world is being a mother. I hope to be a mother again, because this technology is going so that I can be a mother again, and the child will be loved and will definitely be teaching me a lot too. That's the story from Africa. Thank you. For HIV to occur, you need 3 things, and one of those things is a fluid high in HIV. We have many, many fluids in our body, but the 4 that you have to remember are blood, semen, vaginal fluids, and breast milk. Those are the ones that you have to remember. If you see those coming towards you, then you better run. The activities are unprotected sex, sharing the needles, childbirth, and breastfeeding. Childbirth is because the baby is coming through a very small canal and it's getting little cuts and tears and getting mother's blood. That causes the baby to get infected. In a case of myself, we would have to do artificial insemination. Sorry for all the graphics. And then the baby would have to be removed through a C-section, which helps reduce the rate of transmission. For HIV to then get into the body, there has to be a way in. I can pour a hot flesh blood of HIV onto somebody, but if there's no way into their body, it's not going to happen. So there has to be either a cut or a saw, a puncture, or a tear. And it's not every time that people have intimate experiences with HIV positive people, it's not every time that they get transmitted the virus too. If you're healthy and you don't have any cuts and tears, you pass just like that. So it's something to remember that it's not because you haven't gone with a HIV positive person. It's probably because
I'm really sorry, but we have to start our next session.
Okay.
Yeah, in room 100. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just, so that we round up all the questions that we would have live.
Yes.
And to say thank you, I would kindly ask all of us to stand up and honor Minneh for her courageous and for educating us. Can we hold hands, please? We can do it in our own hands. Just 1 second.
Thank you very much.
I guess the questions will have to come after the other session, so you can hold them. And I just want to give something small to Minneh. Thank you so much for coming. That was very touching.
Thank you.